Picture this, you're watching a movie, someone walks into a pub, says one sentence, and your brain freezes. You're like, okay, that's Irish. Or Scottish. Or, wait, why do they sound kind of similar? And then you do the most American thing possible, you guess Irish, because it feels safer. But then the comments section eats you alive. If that has ever happened to you, you're not alone. Irish and Scottish accents confuse a lot of Americans, and the funny part is, it's not because you're bad with accents. It's because your ears are doing what they were trained to do, simplify. Today, I'm going to fix that with one simple map trick. No complicated linguistics. No fancy terms. Just a way to place what you're hearing in seconds. And by the end of this video, you'll stop calling a Glaswegian Irish, stop calling someone from Belfast Scottish, and you'll finally understand the one accent zone that messes everyone up on purpose. Let's start with the real reason Americans get confused. Most Americans didn't grow up hearing Irish and Scottish accents every day. In the US, accents are usually grouped by big regions: Southern, New York, Midwest, California, large buckets. But in Ireland and Scotland, accents can shift fast. Sometimes you drive an hour and the accent changes. Not slightly. Noticeably. So when an American ear hears Irish or Scottish, your brain does something automatic. It says, okay, I don't know all the subversions of this, so I'll label it as one category, Celtic. And once you do that, everything starts sounding related. Then Hollywood makes it worse. Movies don't teach you accents. Movies teach you accent costumes. If they want a character to feel Irish, they pick a strong, exaggerated Irish tone. If they want Scottish, they pick one of a few iconic types. And the result is that most Americans have heard a handful of Irish-sounding or Scottish-sounding voices, but not the real variety. So what happens when you hear a real accent that doesn't match the Hollywood version? Confusion. Instantly. Now here's the good news, you don't need to memorize dozens of accents. You just need a simple way to organize the sound in your head. Here's the map trick. Think of two islands. Ireland on the left. Scotland above and to the right. And instead of trying to learn every accent, you learn 4 anchors. Like 4 pins on a map. 2 anchors on Ireland. 2 anchors on Scotland. Anchor number 1 is Dublin, in the east of Ireland. Anchor number 2 is Belfast, in the north of Ireland. Then for Scotland, anchor number 3 is Glasgow, in west central Scotland. Anchor number 4 is Edinburgh, in the east of Scotland. Dublin. Belfast. Glasgow. Edinburgh. If you can place what you're hearing closer to one of those anchors, you'll stop feeling like you're guessing in the dark. It becomes a simple, which direction question, not an impossible, what accent is this question. Now I'm going to give you beginner-friendly cues that help you decide. First cue, think east versus west. This is not a strict rule. It's a shortcut. But it works surprisingly well for American ears. Accents in the east, like Dublin and Edinburgh, often sound a little more controlled or clean to outsiders. Not because they are better, but because they are closer to what media often presents as a more standard urban speech in those countries. Accents in the west, like parts of Western Ireland, and Glasgow and beyond, often sound broader, stronger, more aggressively regional to American ears. So when you hear an accent and it feels very sharp, very forward, very in your face, your first thought should be, could this be west-leaning? Not always, but often. When it feels smoother and more city-polite, your first thought can be, could this be east-leaning? Again, it's a shortcut. But it's useful. Now here's the second cue, the R test. Listen for the letter R in words like car, hard, first. In some accents, the R is soft or disappears. In others, it is clearly pronounced. Now, here's the twist that surprises Americans. Both Irish accents and Scottish accents often pronounce the R strongly. That's one reason they get confused. Americans are used to one big contrast, British non-R versus American R. So they expect Irish and Scottish to behave differently. But a lot of the time, both have strong R sounds. So if you clearly hear the R, don't automatically think, oh, that must be Irish. It might be. But it might also be Scottish. So the R test is not the final answer. It's just the first clue. The third cue is rhythm. And I'm going to describe this in a way that's simple, not technical. To many American ears, some Irish accents can sound more melodic, like their voice rises and falls in a musical way. You feel the sentence singing a little more. Meanwhile, some Scottish accents can feel more clipped or punchy, like their words snap out with strong edges. But here's the important part. This is not universal, and it's not a stereotype you should use to mock people. It's a training wheel for your ear. A way to notice rhythm patterns until you get better at hearing specifics. Now, let's apply these cues to each of our 4 anchor points. Let's start with Dublin. Dublin is the big urban anchor for Ireland that many Americans think of first. The Dublin accent, depending on the person and the area, can sound more city and more restrained than the super-exaggerated Irish accents you hear in movies. Some Dublin speakers have a lighter, faster delivery. To Americans, it can sound a little less storybook Irish and more like, oh, that's just a person talking. So if you hear something Irish but it doesn't match the over-the-top Irish voice you expect, don't reject it. It might be Dublin or the East Side influence. Now Belfast. Belfast is in Northern Ireland, and this is where the confusion begins. A lot of Americans hear Belfast and think Scottish, especially if they are not used to it. Why? Because Belfast sits near a zone of historical and cultural connection across the North Channel, between Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. And because of that, Belfast accents can share qualities that Americans associate with Scottish speech. Belfast can sound fast, tight, sometimes more direct to American ears. Not always melodic in the way people imagine Irish accents. So Americans go, wait, is that Scottish? And this is the first major trap, calling Northern Irish accents Scottish because they don't sound like the Hollywood Irish you were trained on. Now Glasgow. Glasgow is probably the single most misidentified Scottish accent in America. People will hear Glasgow and go, that's Irish. Or, that's just British. Glaswegian can sound strong, fast, and full of local flavor. And if you're not used to it, it can feel like it has the same kind of energy Americans associate with Irish accents, especially because both can have clear R sounds and lively rhythm. So Americans mislabel Glasgow as Irish because it feels closer to their Celtic bucket. Now Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the Scottish East anchor. To outsiders, some Edinburgh speech can sound a bit more measured than Glasgow. Again, not better, just different. If Glasgow feels punchy and very regional to American ears, Edinburgh can feel slightly more controlled or less intense. So when you hear Scottish and it doesn't feel like the intense, fast Glasgow stereotype you've heard before, it could be closer to Edinburgh or the East Side influence. Now, here is the key moment of this whole video, the echo zone. If you remember one thing, remember this. The hardest region for Americans is not Ireland versus Scotland. It's the zone where Northern Ireland and Western Scotland feel like they are talking to each other across water. That's why Americans confuse Belfast with Scottish accents, and Glasgow with Irish accents. And it's not because those places are the same. It's because your ear is still learning the map. So here's how the map trick actually saves you. When you hear an accent and you're stuck between Irish and Scottish, ask yourself one question. Does this feel more like Dublin or more like Belfast? Or on Scotland, does this feel more like Edinburgh or more like Glasgow? Because your first job is not to be perfect. Your first job is to place it near an anchor. Here's a simple way to practice. Imagine you're drawing a mental compass. If it feels Irish but not storybook Irish, put it near Dublin first. If it feels Irish but also strangely Scottish, put it near Belfast. If it feels Scottish but not the intense one, put it near Edinburgh. If it feels Scottish but very strong, very fast, and very street to American ears, put it near Glasgow. Once you do that, your guesses stop being random, and your ear starts learning patterns. Now let's talk about the other reason Americans get confused. Americans listen for the wrong things. A lot of people think accents are just about vowel sounds. But for beginners, the bigger clue is often the shape of the sentence. How quickly the person speaks. Where the stress hits. Whether their voice rises at the end. Whether words connect smoothly or come out in sharper chunks. That's why two accents can share some similar sounds, but still feel different in motion. So if you want a simple skill, don't just listen to one word. Listen to the whole sentence like it's a drumbeat. Now, let's roast Hollywood for a second, gently. Hollywood has taught Americans two fake ideas. Fake idea number one, there is one Irish accent. Not true. Ireland has a range of accents that can sound completely different to outsiders. Now, let's make this practical with a mini mental quiz. I'm going to describe a few situations, and you try to place them with the anchor trick. Scenario 1, you hear an accent that feels Irish, but it's not the Leprechaun movie voice. It's quick, urban, and feels like a modern city person speaking. Your anchor guess should be Dublin or East-leaning Irish. Scenario 2, you hear an accent and you think Irish, but there's something about it that feels closer to Scotland than you expected. The rhythm is tight. The delivery is fast. It doesn't feel like the classic Irish melody you imagined. Your anchor guess should be Belfast or North-leaning Irish. Scenario 3, you hear an accent that you know is Scottish, but it doesn't feel like the strongest stereotype. It feels calmer, more measured, more professional. Your anchor guess should be Edinburgh or East-leaning Scottish. Scenario 4. You hear an accent that could be Irish or Scottish, but it feels intense, quick, and punchy. It hits your ear like a fast drum beat. Your anchor guess should be Glasgow or West Central Scottish. Even if you're wrong sometimes, you're training your ear correctly, because you're organizing what you hear instead of just guessing Irish every time. Now I want to give you a cheat sheet summary that you can actually remember. 2 islands. 4 anchors. Ireland. Dublin in the east, Belfast in the north. Scotland, Glasgow in the west central, Edinburgh in the east. If an accent confuses you, it's usually because you're hearing the echo zone between Belfast and Glasgow, where American ears mix the signals. And the goal isn't to become an expert overnight. The goal is to stop being lost. Because once you stop being lost, you start noticing details. And after you notice details, accents become fun instead of stressful. Now, I want to end with something important. Accents are not costumes. They are identity. They carry history, region, family, culture, and pride. So the point of this video is not to mock anyone or do bad impressions. It's to help you hear with more respect, so you stop flattening 2 countries into one sound. So here's your challenge. The next time you hear an accent you can't place, don't guess randomly. Use the trick. Ask, which anchor is it closest to, Dublin, Belfast, Glasgow, or Edinburgh? And if you want to take it further, drop a comment and tell me which accent confuses you most, Belfast or Glasgow. Or maybe there's another one that breaks your brain completely. And if you want a follow-up, the next video can be 6 Irish accents that don't sound Irish to Americans, or Scottish accents explained in 1 line per region. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.